to the ashes. The spirits light up the night. Looking down the
Now, from the Untold Radio Network, it's Untold Radio AM with Doug and Alex Hychak.
Howdy, howdy.
Howdy.
Hello, Alex. Did you enjoy our amazing weather today? It was perfect.
Yes, finally. It's
And
beautiful.
how did you enjoy it?
Went for a walk
Oh, cool.
outside.
Yeah, that works. It's been a long time. It's been a long winter. Yeah, I went on a long bike ride. Anyhow, but hello, everybody in our live audience tonight. I'm getting some interference. How about you? You hearing anything?
I sound fine.
Oh, it's you. It's definitely you, Alex.
What are you hearing?
Whoa.
What?
Got some bad interference.
I don't hear anything. Do you guys hear
Let's
anything?
hear that. Alex, you're going to need to reboot or check your mic. Can you hear that? Alex,
No, I don't hear that.
can you hear anything?
I hear you.
Okay, you need to sign off. Restart.
Okay, everyone's saying
Your
it
mic's
sounds good.
so crazy.
Sibylla's saying it sounds good. Lori Barnes.
Alex, you need to hang up.
Okay. All right.
There we go. Whoa. That was terrible. Anyhow, I was hearing that. I don't know. I don't know what the deal was. It was our connection maybe, but there's no way I could do a show like that. It was incredible. So tonight we have Fred Roehl on from Alaska, and it should be an amazing show. I'm going to try to dig maybe a little deeper than some others have gone, and we'll get some new information. Fred is just a wealth of experience and information. He's also one of the most articulate witnesses that I've ever heard. So that's coming up at the near bottom of the hour. And see, what else do we have? I was going to mention to everybody, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It would really help continue to allow us to bring you all sorts of new shows and new content. And we've got 3 new shows coming in May. So, and I believe Paranormal Spectrum started already. Episode 1 is up, so you might want to check that out with Barnaby Jones. All right. What else do we have? Obviously, it was the eclipse. I think a lot of people got kind of excited about that. I absolutely did not care about the eclipse much. I've seen so many in my life. It seems like it anyhow. So I took a nap. I thought, what a great time to take a nap during the eclipse. Whoa, Alex. Yeah, it's bad. Can you talk, Alex?
Yeah, I can talk.
No, it's bad. Your mic is completely toast. Everybody else maybe can hear you, but it's bad. Maybe I should try a reboot. Every time you talk, it's killing my ears.
You're cutting out when you talk.
Sounds like there's a tiger loose in the mic. Let me try to reboot. Maybe you can go to a quick commercial. It's like the worst.
Yeah, sounds good.
I can't even hear you, Alex. So
Okay.
let me try to reboot.
Okay.
Hey, Untold Radio Network fans. Want exclusive perks and to support our channel? Introducing our YouTube membership program with 3 amazing levels. Get loyalty badges that level up to different cryptids the longer you're a supporter. How cool is that? You'll also get access to custom Bigfoot emojis and priority.
So how's everyone doing tonight? Do I sound okay? Sorry, it's always broken. If you guys want to help me out here, do I sound okay or am I a mess? What about now? How am I, Lori? I sound fine? No cracking? Okay, so I sound good. That's good to hear. Does anyone have any questions for Fred Roehl tonight? He's had some adventures in Alaska. Sounds good. The joys of a live show. And, you can pick on me if you want. If I sound like crap, just let me know. I'm really white.
There we
Hey.
Yeah, maybe it was my computer.
Okay, so I sound okay?
Yeah. You know what? Every time you talked, this is what I heard.
Ooh, sorry.
Really blowing my ears out. And I could not make one word out. So isn't that odd?
Yeah.
Sound check before the show was perfect.
Isn't that bizarre? I know.
Bizarre. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand it, but that's the fun of live radio. Okay. Anyhow, what do we got going on here? Let me get back to my thing because my computer rebooted. Everything started over again. It's just one thing after another, right? So,
Yeah.
but you know what that means? A bad beginning means a good ending.
That's how it always is.
My dad used to tell me that about vacations. If you have a bad start to a vacation, it rains the first 2 days, you're going to have the best vacation ever. So remember that.
Exactly.
Anyhow, I lost my whole plan. I was telling everybody I slept through the eclipse. What did you do?
I was excited and I didn't even notice it happened. Like I got so busy.
It probably really wasn't that big of a deal here in Minnesota.
Right.
It was already cloudy, as I remember. So I thought, hey, I want to take a nap. I had worked 2 days straight without sleeping. So I thought, after staying up all night again and then then suddenly it's around noon. I'm like, perfect nap time. So I did that.
Yeah, I wished I caught it, but
yeah. So the only thing kind of interesting that happens during eclipses is people spot UFOs because everybody's staring up at the sky, right? Or they're paying attention. And of course, there's been numerous UFOs. They're trickling into me. They're trickling into other people on a pretty regular basis, So what's the smirk for? You got a smirk. Did you freeze up, Alex? Alex froze up now.
Am I back?
Yeah, there you go. You froze up in a smirk position.
It's gonna be a great show.
What in the world is going on?
I don't know.
I can just picture some little guy in the government going, let's get the Legend Meet Science guy.
They got a little switchboard.
And they're just screwing with us. Yeah, I wished. Okay. Photo one, throw photo one up because apparently NASA got the best picture of the eclipse.
That's
and
incredible.
It shows, all the corona mass ejections that happened. There it is. Some people say, well, that's fake. Probably is. I think 90% of everything you see out of NASA is fake. I really do. But it's just, have we ever even seen a photo of the Earth? You kind of wonder, if it's been photoshopped and touched up.
Yeah.
Anyhow, John Ayers was kind enough to send this to me, and I thought it was pretty cool. There you go. It's the sun in slow motion. And then another listener, Lori Barnes, sent in an article about a giant coyote that was killed in Michigan. Did you hear about this?
No.
So apparently this literally giant coyote was killed in Michigan, and it turns out to be a very rare species.
Oh, yeah, she did send me the story. Yeah.
And it just happened to be a wolf. It was a timber wolf, a gray wolf.
It was.
So it wasn't a coyote. Apparently the guy had he was hunting coyotes legally, shot it. And, if the government, your state or local government says an animal doesn't exist and you shoot it, you can't be blamed for it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, wolves are protected, but you know, how can you blame the guy? He just thinks, oh, there's a nice one.
Yeah, it's a big one.
So he shoots it. But what's so funny? Here's what's funny and ironic about this article. It says the nearest inhabitants of, gray wolves, of 600 gray wolves, is 250 miles away. And I'm thinking, can you really call yourself biologists? Because a 250-mile range for a creature like a gray wolf is nothing. Why is that so mysterious?
It is weird. I don't know. I don't know why people say that.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyhow, so it's not people. It's the government. It's the Michigan. The other thing, I think there's probably, I would guess 3 times the amount of wolves that they're even saying. I guess that there's a ton of wolves because usually where there's one, there's at least a pack. Right? And if there's 6 more, 7 more, 8 more, 10 more, there's 10 times more than they think in that area. I think it's the same for cougars too. I think, Michigan, in fact, my first cougar sighting happened in Michigan near Escanaba on Highway 8.
Your first sighting?
Yeah, it was clear sighting of a tawny cougar. Big male. Literally sitting in the middle of the road, eating some roadkill.
That must have been incredible.
Yeah, it was. It was many years ago, but there's cougars in Michigan. So anyhow, and I think there's cougars in Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, then beyond further east. They just will not acknowledge it. I don't get it. All right, then we have a giant gobster that washes up on the coast of Malaysia, and that's attracting crowds, of course. And I don't have a photo number because when I rebooted, it took away my email. Do you know which photo that is? It's kind of a dead thing laying on a beach.
I think I got it. Yeah. Whoa.
It's a big blob. I'm going to see if I can get into my other email somehow.
This is it, right?
Yes. And, have you ever heard the term gobster before?
No,
Alex?
I don't think so.
Okay. So gobsters were a really big thing in the 70s. It was one of the things that cryptozoology had going for it, is they would post these dead, unidentified animals that would wash up on the beach, and they would decompose. And so they look weird. This could be just some common whale, but when muscle and tissue and baleen and all these things decompose, you end up with something that can look really weird, or it really could be a sea monster. But back in the 70s and the 80s, there was no DNA testing.
So you couldn't confirm either way.
Right. So you could say, a sea monster washed up on the beach. And it would just, it end up in 50 books and be just the amazement of the whole world. I grew up on gobsters. That was pretty much the closest thing. It was the Patterson footage and gobster pictures.
Nice.
Yeah, that's kind of what we had back then. But that's probably just a common whale because you can test them now.
Yeah. And hopefully, if there is ever a sea monster, we could test it and confirm.
So that's kind of the deal. All right. So now let's go ahead and throw up photo 1B. We've got a new plane that could end up being our future passenger planes. I'm liking it because it's wide. It's not just a tube, right? So this is apparently a California aerospace startup called Jet Zero. And they got the go to fly this thing. So this may be where we're headed. And it's about time because planes haven't changed. Passenger jets, they haven't changed since the 50s, Alex.
Isn't that weird?
You realize that? They haven't gotten better. They're just the same old damn jet from the 50s. A tube with wings, and they work, but, they're so narrow. but this would be cool. It'd be kind of a wide body, but apparently it's also more fuel efficient, reducing CO2. And that's all that's important, apparently.
Kind of looks like a UFO.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So let's see here. So they breaking the norm of the tube and wing aircraft. So I think it's cool. I think it's about time. I'm getting sick of the jets. I'd love to see a new,
Right, something new.
Could you imagine that if you had a real wide jet? Would that be cool? I mean, I remember the 747 seemed wide, but this would be really wide. We'll put you in the wingtip. And we got a flight coming up, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
It's been a while since me and you've flown anywhere.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so. Providing we don't have technical problems in the airplane.
Yeah. Well,
like we do with the podcast.
Given our luck.
Yeah, it'll be like the pilot will be going, we're experiencing all sorts of weird glitches with our electrical system. Yeah, nice. All right, then photo 1C. 3D printing of houses really fascinates me because, once again, houses are still built in the same old way. We need more housing. My God, we got 20 million new, apparently visitors or new immigrants in the country. We're going to need much quicker housing to be able to make it. And we use 3D printers all the time, as you know, Alex.
Yeah, they're awesome.
And this is, just scaled up. It's a house. You can see they even printed their flower pots.
That's cool.
Not sure I want the thatched roof, though. Rats can climb in and out of those things.
Yeah.
No thanks. Say no to the thatched roof.
Yeah, it's cool.
But I think it's cool. It says here, they're earthquake proof, and that home is built in 26 hours.
That's so cool.
That would be cool, wouldn't it? It's a big spigot of gluey cement comes out and it starts extruding and doing it, but it's kind of cool. All right, let's throw up video 1, which is, you can throw up your little funny bumper that you like. Your Untold funny, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Is it dad jokes? What is it?
Dad jokes.
Yeah, throw it up. And this is really bad. Oh, see, then you go and ruin it for me.
Sorry.
Jesus, dude. Okay. So have you ever heard of camouflage? Not camouflage.
No. What's that?
Play the clip and you'll find out what camouflage is. Go ahead and play it.
Clover.
This is camouflage. I don't know if Alex gets it. Do you get that joke there, Alex? Alex, hello.
They're not cows.
No, they're cows. You didn't put that back up. I hope everybody gets this bad joke. It's camouflage, like camouflage. Watch what happens.
Clover.
The little cow disappears because the stripes match.
Oh, yes.
Camouflage.
They match.
You didn't get that, did you?
It was too sophisticated.
Then Alex definitely needs a donut. By the way, the boys in the tech department threw in a donut in the open. Did you see it?
Donut in the open?
You didn't notice the donut in the open? I did.
No.
It's right by your head. Anyhow, it's in there. People can look for it next week. It's an Easter egg donut. All right. That's it for I had for funny stuff.
Are we going into tech breakdown? Fred's in the back room.
Let's go ahead and get that done. Do you know what before you play the bumper, do you know what SPBD is? SPBD, because that's what we're going to talk about tonight in Tech Breakdown. And it concerns Bigfoot, apparently. SPBD.
No.
It stands for spontaneous parasitic battery drain.
Ah.
Spontaneous parasitic battery drain. That I get these, maybe once a month from researchers that go, do you know why my batteries went dead? They were fully charged when we left. We get to the spot, we had Bigfoot activity, we hear some wood knocks, blah, blah, blah. All my batteries went dead.
Okay, I've heard of that.
You've
stuff,
heard
I
of that,
think.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
But I thought I would address it, properly address it. So go ahead and you get to play another bumper.
All right, let's bump it.
All right. So obviously, you know the topic, spontaneous parasitic battery drain. Okay. The main question I get is how can we prevent that? Well, first off, we don't even know it's happening. We don't know it's related to the Bigfoot mystery. We don't. Have I had it done? Yeah, I had it done once in my career. Wasn't in the presence of Bigfoot, though. It was actually in the presence of a UFO. And not only did it drain my battery, completely drained, that was fully charged, brand new iPhone, it turned my phone into a brick. The phone didn't work after that. So it did affect the electronics in it. I took it to 2 different shops, and they just said, your phone's a brick. And I'm like, what does that mean? Well, it doesn't even conduct electricity anymore. So I don't know. I mean, it's weird, right? So maybe Bigfoots can do it. Let's just keep an open mind, but let's talk about how we can prevent that, that from happening. And it's actually quite simple. I mean, we need to shield the batteries with some type of a Faraday cage, an EMF shield, an EMP shield. And so I jump right into things that we started testing. Me and Adam Colt spent quite a long time, almost a month, testing different materials. And for EMP, for blocking cell phone signals, and all sorts of things. And what we came up with, worked better than anything, was thin aluminum sheeting. Like a 64th. Yeah. Nothing special about the aluminum, just a standard soft. It's certainly probably softer than 60, 61 aluminum. And it worked almost 100% in shielding, shielding people from cell phone radiation. So my theory is if something can't get in, it can't get out. So your batteries are going to be safe if you can shield them. And there's many ways to do it. One, yes, you're going to have a hard time protecting your batteries with a piece of aluminum. But there's other ways to do it. Go ahead and throw up photo 5. Start out there. Kind of follow along. So that's the 1/64th sheeting that you can buy from Amazon. That's the photo right out of the Amazon catalog. $20 for all those sheets. And yeah, you can try this. I mean, you could make some kind of a little bag. You don't even have to shield it on all 4 sides, just 2. We found generally just 2 sides works.
Just 2 is good enough.
Yeah, generally. As a general rule. Well, we did a lot of testing. Okay. So then throw up photo 6. And believe it or not, they make EMF headgear shielding for people that claim that like the 5G and the 4G and whatever cell phone coverage, EMF coming off power lines are giving them headaches and fatigue. So Amazon, and I'm sure other sellers sell cloth hat that you can put on your head. Well, why not use it to store your batteries in? Right?
Yeah, that'd be great.
And if you can just store them in there, you're always going to have a battery. I mean, I've never heard of somebody saying, well, it drained all of my batteries at once. Generally, it's kind of a one at a time thing. We put another one in, it drained. But you could drape this over the back end of the camera where the battery is, for instance.
to protect it.
But once again, this is it's under $40, so more expensive than the aluminum, right? Okay, so now let's throw up, I think, is the best solution, and that's Photo 7. And I've tested this, and I've got one right here in front of me. Go ahead and throw up. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So this is the bag right here. See, it matches. That matches the photo, right?
Cool. Yeah, so you have it.
Okay. One, it's kind of a black shiny. Let's try to get this closer here. Can't really. Anyhow, it's a very kind of a grippy rubber. So you could literally take one of these bags and you could also glue the material right to your batteries. Right? And then there is some type of I believe it's like a carbon fiber woven netting that conducts electricity.
Okay.
Faraday cages work, or Faraday bags. Or don't say, why does aluminum work better than any other metal? I don't really know, other than generally to protect something from EMP or EMF, it has to conduct electricity.
Okay.
But what's interesting is when we tested copper shielding, it didn't work.
At all.
Copper shielding made it worse.
That's so weird.
Yeah, for instance,
Interesting.
we tried to shield the cell phone with copper sheeting. It actually made the EMF coming off the phone worse, which was interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
You want to know how I tested this bag?
How?
I just threw a cell phone in it and tried to dial it. Didn't work. Blocked it.
Yeah,
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work at all.
So what's cool is you get a whole kit. They're quite cheap. I only paid $14 for like 4 of these big, huge bags. And they're different sizes, but they're really nice quality. I was like, holy crap, these are nice. And you can use some of them for like in case of an EMP attack. You can put, radios, walkie-talkies, or an emergency, whatever, ham radio in there. And you've then got something that would work. And supposedly they will work. Well, the only way I can really test them is to try to broadcast EMF out of them, and it doesn't work, or try to penetrate it. It didn't work. So there you go. So anyhow, they're under $7 or $30 a set, and be real easy to glue with. Even temporary with hot glue would stick to this. You could use, I'm sure, any type of rubber cement or any type of silicone, or you could peel it off at some point. But if you're having a problem with that, do something about it. Shield your batteries. Literally for $30, you get a whole bunch of bags and you can do whatever you want, or just store your batteries right in the bag. Super nice. I mean, I was actually like, holy crap, really impressed. They're also great. Take your camera equipment out in the field. They're waterproof. Right? They're coated in this nice neoprene material. Just super nice. I love them. I'm actually thinking on just using them for my camera bags because they're so nice quality.
They look really nice.
Zippers are heavy duty to boot. Yeah, super good. Anyhow, that's all I got on that.
Very cool.
And next week, we're going to talk about attracting Bigfoot with different frequencies.
Awesome.
What frequency or what sounds, other than wood knocking and screaming like a banshee out in the woods, what subtle things can we do maybe to attract a Bigfoot, right? So that's what we're going to talk about next week. All right?
Sweet.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good one. These are kind of fun to do. They get
Yeah.
me thinking about, things I'm already doing, but it's kind of fun sharing this stuff.
Yeah, I think it does the community a lot of good.
Well, maybe it does. I don't know. Don't know. Haven't done enough of them yet. What have we done? 5? 4? 5?
Yeah, I'd say about 5.
All right. Anyhow, no, let me get my email that I had all perfect. I had to reboot. Nice. Yeah, it's really weird what goes on with my emails nowadays. Oh well. So we're gonna bring on Fred. Is he in the house?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
great. So we're gonna bring on Fred Roehl, I believe is how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Is that correct? He has subarctic Alaska Sasquatch, and he's had many Bigfoot encounters, family experience, and of course, their term is hairy man, where he comes from, or his family. They call it hairy man, and he'll share some really amazing stories. And I feel a little bit akin to Fred, only because I've been in cabins that have been attacked.
Right.
Two different
right.
cabins, actually, that have been attacked. And in fact, I was going to mention your sister is coming on next week as one of our guests, and she's going to recall a number of experiences that me and her have shared, including a cabin attack. So she'll be on next week.
Very
It's
cool.
not the main guest, but a warm-up guest.
Yeah. that'd be
She's
awesome.
kind of, I think she's nervous,
I'm sure it'll be
but
fun.
excited. Maybe she's listening. She'd be mad at me for saying that. Anyhow, so let's welcome Fred. I'm excited to meet him.
Hey, Fred.
Fred, can you hear me?
Hey, greetings, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, hey. It's so cool that you're willing to join us. And I would imagine, are you right now you're in Alaska, but you're in a kind of a wilderness area right now?
Well, I live in Wasilla right now because there's no job opportunities over in Bristol Bay. So I'm about roughly 65 miles north of Anchorage in the Matsu Valley.
But I would imagine there's forests and
Yeah.
water.
I don't have to go very far. I got a salmon stream less than a mile from me.
Yeah.
Hatchet Pass, as the crow flies, is about 5. So it's I'm surrounded by Alaska for sure.
Yeah, and Alaska's the entire subarctic and the Arctic. Don't you agree, Fred, are probably the most beautiful places in the whole planet?
I agree, and I'm not just trying to be biased. I've seen a lot of other places, and nothing's like Alaska. It's its own category.
Yeah, no, every time I haven't been into the Arctic. It's been a while, probably going on 14 years, but starting to visit Canada again, and I'm hoping to get up actually into Northwest Territories again, and maybe up to Alaska, maybe even this summer. So, but okay, so let's go ahead and, Fred, your story better than anybody, and your story is so amazing. Your story of your family, everything, your life. Where do you want to start tonight? Because you do a lot of these podcasts, but where do you want to start?
Well, something that might help, someone from the outside looking in is how they view oral history. A lot of people don't realize just what that means. They chalk it up, oral history, that's mythological, folklore and whatnot. And that's just not the case. What it actually is, let's say we're 3 family members. What we do is we just sit there and discuss amongst each other times from the past, things that are pertinent, important, things that'll save your life, where to find, the good moose hunting grounds, where the good places are to catch salmon, things that are vital to day-to-day life, things to keep you safe, fed, and whatnot. And it just seems like over the years, people have chalked it up to some kind of mythology, some kind of folklore, and it's just not the case. It's how we teach each other how to stay safe and survive in such an extreme environment. That would be one of the things I shared, because I always hear these people, speaking to native mythology and this and that. And grant you, there's some of that, but those who live by an oral history, it's so different than what people imagine, because we deal with the things that will keep us alive. My aunties didn't sit there and, chew our butts out because of, you know, just kids being kids. There was purposes behind it as far as keeping us safe from bears, lynx, wolves, the hairy man, little people. These things weren't just arbitrarily thrown out there to scare us. They were actually to keep us safe. So, but other than that, there's so much that goes on with villagers that it would blow your mind. There's so many things that the outside world would never have a clue about. And it's, a lot of it has to do with old superstitious ways. There's these superstitions that is speaking about the hairy man can bring him in. It can bring a bad omen on the family. It just all sorts of bad connotations. The oral history I was taught was that the Sasquatch, hairy man, Chakaya, whatever you want to call it, is not our friend. It'll steal you. It'll steal your women. And basically it's going to eat you. There's never, when I asked around to see where'd this start, and I was always told they've always been here. So that being said, depending on the tribe, from what I've learned, just talking to other villagers and other tribes people from across the country, is that depending on their distance from the interactions with the hairy man, their view of it will be different. The further away from the interactions, the more peaceful kind of view they have of it, versus the tribes that live close and have to deal with it in an adversarial way. Their views are different.
How old were you, Fred, when you first heard the term hairy man, and when did your first understanding happen?
First heard it some of the earliest things we were taught. So 4 or 5, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Just thinking back, and my first experience seeing one and realizing it wasn't just stories was 1983. I snuck away from the crowd to go work on my tree fort, and I'm walking down this trail just kind of staring at my feet, and about 70 yards.
Whoop, we lost Fred. And when we get Fred back, Alex, maybe we can have him adjust his mic a bit.
Yeah, I think it's tough where he's operating out of.
And hopefully, I'm sure he knows enough to dial right back in again.
Yeah. I'm going to just shoot him a quick message.
Yeah. Fred is absolutely an amazing spokesperson on this topic and with the native community.
Yeah, he's one of a kind.
Hopefully, I think about, the fact that he's even takes the time to do this is amazing to me.
Yeah, one thing I want to mention, we have Sibylla's art and illustrations from his encounters too to go through.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil it.
No. I just wanted to mention that.
Yep, no, that'll be cool, and you could probably just put those up if you can find the ones that go along with his stories. Has he tried to come back in?
Yeah, I just messaged him now. I haven't seen him yet.
I really apologize. Tonight's just been rot. And it's always your worst fear. You're going to have technical problems. There's nothing we can do about it except try to fix them.
Yeah, if you want, I could drop off for a second, try to give him a call, make sure he's good, and then we could always do Doug's clips too. We can get through them, but I'll be right back.
Yep. Yeah, I've got 10 clips picked out that we can go through to kill some time, which I picked out only in case we had a technical problem, which can happen. It can happen. So next week, what I'm going to be talking about is this new type of sound that we've kind of connected very loosely to the Bigfoot mystery, and that's this kind of buzzing hummingbird kind of wing sound, which is almost partly in the infrasound range and above, and it's been all the way back to the 1800s. It's been connected to the Bigfoot mystery. So that's just one of the things we're going to talk about next week, a little more detailed, and we're going to have David Ellis come in on Tech Breakdown. But there's other subtle things that can be done, that can be tried. So what I want to do next week is throw out a whole bunch of really cool ideas, suggestions, and I'm really hoping some researchers grab these ideas and take them to their good areas and try them out, see what happens, and then report back to us and let us know. Because if we don't start doing more experimenting, we're really not going to make any headway. It's this experimenting with things that have never been tried that are going to, get results. Think about the Patterson footage. No one had ever tried to get film of a Bigfoot before Roger and Bob.
Okay. So Fred's with us via audio.
Oh, that's fine.
Can you talk, Fred?
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. That plane flew over and all my signal just went right out the window.
No problem. And we've got some photos and things, but Fred's going to need to turn his volume down because now we have an echo.
Okay. No problem.
Like his volume on his phone.
Yeah.
Where he's hearing us. Yeah, I don't have an echo now, so that helps.
All right.
Does I turned it down some? Does that help?
Yeah, as long as you turn your phone down a bit, your volume, that should get rid of the echo. Okay, so let's kind of begin. Fred, okay, so you were mentioning you had snuck off to go to your tree fort.
Yeah, I'd snuck away to work on my tree fort. I thought I was being slick, and I'm walking down the trail staring at my feet, and about 70 yards in front of me is this batch of willows that I have to cross through to get over to where my play area was. And as I'm walking, something just got my attention, and I stopped looking at my feet and looked up, and I saw this real tall figure in the willows, and I thought I was in trouble with my Uncle Leo because he's like 6'4" or something at the time. And so instantly I stopped, and all of a sudden this thing starts swaying, and I realized it wasn't my uncle because of exactly how tall it was. And then it screamed at me, and I took off out of there. But that's the day I realized that all those warnings from my aunties and stuff were true.
Mm.
And it seemed like the realization opened a floodgate of what was going on around me. Like the neighbors we would use VHF radios just like people would use their cell phone today, and the neighbors would chime in, with, hey, there's a hairy man spotted at the gravel pit, or, whatever the oddity may be, whether it be a moose nearby or a bear. But that instance, it brought everything into view, so to speak, that all those stories weren't just to keep us out of the woods. They were actually to keep us safe.
So did you report that encounter that, which was obviously brief, but it probably convinced you, like you said, that everything you had heard is true. Did you report back, and what was told back to you?
Well, I was yelled at for not listening first. My Aunt Lucy, who was watching this at the time, of course, I got my, this was back in the days of corporal punishment, but I got in trouble by her and also by my parents and them when they got back from fish camp. Everyone everyone heard the scream. I wasn't that far from my other cousins. There's probably about 8 to 9 of us at any given time being watched by my Aunt Lucy. Because of our age, we weren't quite old enough and strong enough to go to fish camp to work over on Michigan.
So when was your next? Oh,
to finish the other part of that
Yeah, go
question,
ahead.
what was I told about it? I was told I was lucky I didn't get stolen and eaten. That was the reoccurring chastisement I got from my auntie and, various other relatives as they heard it.
What's really interesting, and we don't know, but it is highly suspicious, are the stats on missing people in Alaska. It's absolutely horrible. Can you talk a little bit before we get more into your stories about all of the people that go missing in Alaska?
Yeah, I believe the statistic is 500 to 2,000 people go missing up here every year, and like over 16,000 since they started keeping track, which hasn't been that long, which that in and of itself you would think would warrant a public health emergency. All these people going missing. Grant you, fair enough, there's some that want to go missing, some that just get kind of, deleted by others. And then, you got the strange ones, the real weird ones that don't have any explanation. I mean, just within the last couple of years, there's Mary Wilson. She went missing on the Stampede Trail. She was 6.5 miles in, somehow got stuck on the side of the path there. And she left her 2-year-old grandson in the truck and left. And they found belongings a mile further up the trail, not in the direction of help of hers. And she's just gone. There's been no other trace of her. And then there's that hunter out of Coldfoot who was up there hunting caribou. He went to retrieve a backpack. And this is in, open tundra, not a lot of trees. And I mean, he's gone. Just all sorts of different things, and what's really rough is trying to find information on missing people. You get the missing person bulletin. Okay, that's fair. Last seen here, last seen wearing, and all that kind of stuff. But you get no context. You get nothing from before they went missing or anything after they were missing, because it's an open investigation. And so it's just the way it works out. It's very hard to even get information about the missing people. Like the mountain runner down there on the mountain marathon, he went missing, just gone. I don't remember what year that was exactly, but he disappeared with a bunch of people around. There's a guy running a cabin up near Talkeetna in the Talkeetna range. He was on his way out of the place he was renting for the season, and poof, he was gone. No sign of him. And he'd been in and out of that place for a while. He had been running that place, and he knew where he was. So just strange ones like that, and trying to find those ones is really difficult. It's actually very sickening how nonchalant the powers that be are about all the missing people. You would think they'd be up in arms and trying to figure it out.
I heard a stat one time, Fred, and it may have even come from you, that about 5 people per 1,000 in Alaska go missing.
Yeah, I was parroting that from some Missing in Alaska show, because I knew of the missing people, but when I heard the actual statistics, it was like, whoa, it made me rethink the experiences I've had in the woods, and how potentially lucky I was as far as not being one of them. It's let's be honest, Alaska's a vast, wild place, the last frontier. You got bears, wolves, you got, the terrain alone can kill somebody. You take the wrong step hiking, you could be done for. It's those strange ones that just have just nothing that makes sense with the disappearances. And then you have the ones where people go missing with a witness who have seen high strangeness with it, that it gets dismissed as taken by bear predation. Anyone who's dealt with bear predation knows the bear ain't going to go all that far with you. They don't have to.
Right.
They'll take you a little ways away and kick dirt and grass on you and defecate on you and sit on you until they've consumed you or all that they want of you, and then they'll move on. There's a kill site. There's drag marks. There's obvious signs of, someone fought for their life and lost to the bear, versus these other ones that just poof, gone. Like just gone. No trace of them ever again.
Yeah. I interviewed Mr. Burns, who was he's a historian on King Kong, and I asked him a question, Fred. I said, why is the thought of Bigfoot and even gorillas back in the 30s and 40s so scary? And he answered with a very, very precise answer. He said, because they can drag you off and consume you whenever they want. They can hold you hostage. They could toy with you. They could pull you into the middle of the forest and you'd never get away, right? Keep you alive for months, weeks, days. Is that kind of what you feel that would be what they would do if they would nab somebody?
Well, I mean, that's a very fair hypothesis. It's all speculation, of course, but yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, there's historical written record of, people who've come back from a kidnapping who have stated such things, tree sap on the eyes for women and, dropping them back off at their tribe at the verge of death and whatnot. But, it kind of makes you wonder, where are they keeping them? I've been trying to look up caves in the area, just as, not that I want to explore them, but just to have a better idea of where the cave systems exist. And the only ones I could really truly find for up here in Alaska are all someone's theory. You know what I mean? Nothing concrete.
Well, it's, Bergman's Law, you would think would really be attached to the Bigfoots up in Alaska, where the farther you go north, the bigger the mass of the animal. And you would think the biggest Bigfoots would be in Alaska, and Northwest Territories in those far north regions. Do you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, I personally put eyes on one that was every bit of 13 to 14 feet tall. Just massive. And
Alex, look up.
Reports of. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Alex, look up at your ceiling. That's 9 foot, right? 13 foot is another 4 feet taller than your ceiling.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was massive.
How tall does
accounts of 10 foot or better?
How tall does a polar bear stand, Fred?
A polar bear?
Yeah.
Goodness, pretty tall. Between 9 and 10 foot.
Yeah.
On his hind legs.
All right. Well, the other thing is there any equivalent of like the Albert Ostman story where he was kidnapped in a sleeping bag, dragged off, miles and miles away, kept and held hostage? Are there any native stories of First Nations people that have that kind of a story?
No. The ones that you hear about, they just when they're gone, they're gone. They don't typically come back. The only story I heard was a very old story from Kaliganik, where they captured a young hairy man near the village, put it in a pit to figure out what they're going to do with it, and over the course of some days, this thing either transformed back to the girl that had been missing for a couple of years, or it was the missing girl replaced and like a prisoner swap type deal. But there's nothing contemporary as far as that, that account of that guy being hauled away and escaping later and getting the hell out of there. I haven't heard him anyway. And I would love to if there is. I would love to hear that story.
So I would say we should probably maybe get into some of your stories, Fred. I think we're kind of all buckled down and warmed up for love to hear whatever story you want to tell, but there's obviously the one story that is absolutely amazing to me, because I don't know if you're aware, the Snellgrove stories that have happened. I've been very scared with my son to where he was going in physical shock up at Snellgrove in Canada, where the cabin was attacked. So when I hear your story, I have a little bit of empathy, although we were unarmed. We didn't have any guns. And I just kind of went off good faith that, these things are probably not going to eat us, and certainly hoped, a lot of hope. But I do feel akin to, when I hear your story, it's amazing to me, because it's kind of a rare experience. It's not a lot, there's not
Right.
a million people out there.
Yeah,
So go
these
ahead and
things, man. I don't know exactly what you went through up there at Snowgrove, but these things attempted to lure us out. And the only thing that saved us was spotting 3 of them off by the tree line. Otherwise, we would have walked right out into this ambush. And again, it's speculation. I'm looking at it 2020 hindsight.
right.
But we were lured out. It's man.
That's crazy.
I feel lucky that we spotted the 3 sets of eye shine a foot, literally 1 step outside this little shack door. And I'm sure you've heard the story before. I don't want to rehash the whole thing.
Let's tell. I would love to. I want to hear this story. Perhaps maybe you could shorten it a tiny bit, because I want to get into some other things after you're done. I know you were on Jim's show.
I can abbreviate it for the time constraint. So we go up to the Nuyahkuk River for some prospecting. This was in 2006, and there was a couple years of preparation prior to by my elder, because he wanted to do some prospecting and potentially set a claim. So 2006 comes around, the fall. We were going to leave on my birthday, which is September 12th, but we stayed an extra day in Dillingham because, I didn't want to be far away from even a remote village on your birthday. You know what I mean? So we left on the 13th. We get up to the Nuyahkuk after a few days of travel because my elder was older and traveling on the water up north is cold. And so, with a couple breaks along the way, we get up to the Nuyahkuk River on September 17th. And it's a couple hours before dark, where this particular place we were was an old Fish and Game counting tower, just a little shelled-in place, real tiny, 8-foot square, little 50s style trailer attached to the back of it, kind of MacGyvered on there. And these little places in remote Alaska, you can't have permanent structures on state property. They have to be on skids. They got to be able to be moved. And this one was no different. And it was sitting off the side of the river, and there's a small counting tower that hadn't been used in forever. Old outhouse nearby, and the tree line's about 50 yards away or so when we get there. And, me and my cousin, who were with my elder, we were the worker bees. We just unloaded the skiff and did what we were told, basically, right? So we get everything in there. My elder cooks for us. We eat. And I was adjusting. I was playing with the rear sight on my shotgun because I had just bought the thing, and I test fired it a couple times coming up the river, and I wasn't happy with its accuracy. So it was a Remington 870. It was a slug gun. And so it had the ghost ring sight adjustable in the rear, and it had the front post sight, right? And so I'm adjusting that rear sight, and it's about a half hour after dark. My elder and cousin are playing cards. And all of a sudden, this whole place, in the middle of my elder dictating to us where he wants these sample buckets for, sluicing from and stuff, the whole place just creaks. It just like a real stiff wind. So instantly it was odd because this little tiny place, we would have been able to tell if the wind was blowing. You know what I mean? It would have been obvious, but the whole place shifts. So when I turn and look, between my cousin's shoulder and this window, the top of the window, I see darkness move, So immediately my eyes got bigger, whatever. My cousin jumps up and was like, "That's not funny." And it was like, no, it's probably a bear. You know, it's probably a bear out there because we're on the Nuya Cut. There's spun out salmon in there. Bear's paradise, you know, so we assumed it was a bear. So he grabs the 30-06. I got that shotgun, and we had this 1,000,000 candlewatt power spotlight. Fling open the door and look towards the riverbank side, which was to our right, and there was nothing there. And as we panned to the left towards that tree line, when it reached, not quite, you know, all the way to the tree line, it was real close to it though. We see these 3 sets of eye shine, and they were bright as fence post markers and just as red, just bright red. 3 sets of eye shine. These things didn't move. They just stood there. And up until that point, anytime we would see one of these things in the dark, it would always evade its eyes. It would always, you know, get the eyes behind the tree or whatever to avoid us. These things didn't care. So that, first of all, was creepy as hell. Instantly, we're back inside, and this little place only had a little J-hook and an eyelet to keep the door closed. Now, this little place is only 5/8 plywood, skinny.
Put the cabin up, Alex.
There's nothing to it.
Okay.
Hold on, Fred. We're going to put that cabin picture up that Sibylla drew. Alex had it up for 1 second. No. There you go. Just leave that up. There you go. That's it. No, why do you keep changing it? There, just leave that up, Alex.
Got it.
All right, Fred, go ahead. Sorry.
And so I step in and I close that J-hook. And the weirdest thing, when I hooked that little J-hook, it seemed like the pressure in the place changed. It felt like we had earmuffs on, like when your ears haven't popped and the person talking next to you sounds like they're in a tunnel or something.
Yeah.
Just weird. And so I'm looking across at my elder saying, hey, there's a hairy man out there. And I'm my cousin's on my left shoulder. I set down that spotlight and I'm talking to him, and I'm holding the shotgun offhanded in my left hand. And I'm asking him, did you see what I saw? And it was kind of a commotion, chaotic, you know, a bunch of talking back and forth about the hairy man. But all of a sudden, my cousin, bam, he's underneath this card table in a heartbeat. And the way he was holding the 30-06 is when we came in the door, he had set the butt of the rifle on the floor and was holding it by the barrel with his 2 hands. And so when he went under the table, he looked like he was having a seizure. The expression on his face and his eyes were wild. He had wet himself, and we're watching. This is all happening way faster than I'm explaining it. But so it looks like he's having a seizure under the table. He's wetting himself, and I look over at my elder, and we look at each other, and then look back down at him and realize he's looking across this little shack to the other window. And in this place, the windows mirrored each other. The one side where I saw the movement over his shoulder, he was on that side. It would be to the left-hand side if you're facing the door of this cabin. He was off to the left, and he's looking at the window off to the right on the side we had just seen the three sets of eyes shine out by the tree line. And so me and my elder look at each other and then turn and look at the window. And like 3 feet away, if that, something right around 3 feet, this thing's face was in the window, and it turned and looked at me, because when I initially looked at it, it was looking down at my cousin. And the way this thing looked at me, I knew what food felt like in an instant. There was no mind speak or anything. It was the energy in the air. I knew I was food. It's really hard to explain how I know, but I imagine it's what a rabbit feels like in the hole with the wolves running around outside, you know? So this thing looks at me and starts moving out of the way of the window. Now, you got to keep in mind that I only saw from the bottom of its nose to the top of its eyebrows in the window in an 18-inch space. This thing starts moving out of view of the window, and I fired 3 times through the wall with the shotgun. The weirdest thing about that point was it was just a thump, thump, thump. There was no kaboom like a shotgun normally would be because of that weird pressure going on. Excuse me. My heart rate goes up a little bit when I share this, but so I fired through the wall, and there's immediately, simultaneously, the place shifts along with this super loud scream. This this scream reverberated throughout the place, like loud. It was so loud that that pot that my elder had made the stew in, it rang like a tuning fork. So you had this shit that almost took me off my feet, the scream and everything. My elder retreats into that little cubby area, as I call it, that little 50 style trailer. That trailer was, all the windows were removed and boarded up front and back, you know, inside and out, to make it a dark space because it's land of the midnight sun. And a lot of their counting of salmon at that tower was done in the summertime, obviously, and it was too bright to get sleep without a, you know, blacked out room or whatever. Well, he ducks in there and he's like, I'm not trying to knock him, but he was basically worthless at that point. He anytime he did engage me in conversation, it was about off-topic stuff, the amount of salmon they caught that year, the price per pound, just stuff that had nothing to do with what was happening. So once he ducks back in there, I grabbed the chairs that were sitting at the table. I tried to grab the 30-06, but my cousin was still not himself. He had a death grip on that barrel, and I didn't want to accidentally shoot him. So I put the one chair in front of the door for whatever reason. It wasn't going to stop nothing, but I just put it there. And then I put the other chairs back of the chair to the opening of this little cubby area, and I sat down in that chair with my shotgun and basically sat quietly anticipating how these things were going to kill us. You know, I just shot this thing. It screamed, you know, and when the place initially shifted, I thought we were in the river. I mean, in my mind's eye in that moment, I thought for sure I was going to be swimming in just a moment, you know. But, yeah, it just went dead quiet. And for more than a handful of hours, I sat there in this silence. The only way I could stop shaking was resigning myself to death. I accepted that I wasn't going to make it to the other side of this experience, and that was very freeing from the terror, because up until I did that, I was shaking so hard. I can't even put it into words. Shock is an understatement. The hot and cold that you deal with in those moments, it was real bad. So sitting there in the silence, I would have to let go of the shotgun to pump that stupid Coleman lantern with the white gas. Oh, I hate those things. I still can't have a white light above my head or hear that hissing sound of those lamps. And I sat there. I sat there for a very long time, just with my own thoughts of how I was going to die and stuff. And after, gosh, when you're terrorized, the time frame. So I'm rough guesstimating, 5-6 hours ish of this going on, this quiet. My cousin starts coming around because, again, my elder wasn't engaging me in conversation about what was happening in those moments. When he did respond, it was always about something else. So I get my cousin up off the floor. At first, when he was talking, man, he wasn't making sense. He was kind of babbling stuff and whatnot. But when I finally got him like with me in those moments, we got him changed up, and I asked him, "What did you see when we came in?" And again, it took a while to coax him from under the table. I was, reassuring him, I shot this thing. It ran away. I shot it. It ran away. Whatever I had to do to get someone else there with me, so to speak, because I felt all alone. So, after he's all better, from that initial experience anyway, and he's got dry clothes on and stuff, I asked him, "What did you see? Why did you go under the table?" And from my perspective, where I was standing just inside that door, I didn't have the same point of view of the window as he did. And he said when he looked out the window, he saw this thing in the light of the lamp going, and it showed its teeth. Now, he said he knows he saw the teeth because when he was initially looking, there's a little bit of a mirrored effect going on. You got to understand it's dark out, light on the inside. So if you've ever looked out a window with a bright light, you kind of have to look through that mirrored effect, right? And that's what he was trying to explain to me when he said it showed his teeth, and for whatever reason, he just lost it. Boom, right under the table he went. And he said when he fell under the table, that's when the thing came closer to the window and looked down at him. And then a moment later, I turned and saw it, and, you know, I fired through the wall. And he said he heard everything. He heard the scream. He felt the place shift. He heard me, you know, trying to talk to the elder and everything. He just couldn't. He was like trapped in his own mind, I guess. And that's a creepy thought in and of itself. But anyway, so after things are quiet and calmed down from him explaining what was going on and all that, we were hatching this plan to get the hell out of Dodge. And, you know, all we have is that boat. Well, this boat, this skiff, it's 22-foot long skiff, flat bottom. When we got there, we had to drag the anchor line, which was like, gosh, every bit of more, it was more than 50 feet long. And, you know, 10, 12 feet of it was chain and the rest was rope, but it was used in the fishing industry and it had to account for the rise in the tide. And that's why it was so long. So, but we buried that freaking anchor way back up on the tundra, and no one was volunteering to go and retrieve it before we got out of there. But our plan was to jump in the boat, use that big spotlight to see, and just kind of drift out of there. Initially, that was the initial plan. And my cousin brings up, let's use the spotlight and look out the windows and see what we see before we run to the boat and, you know, drift out of here or whatever. Well, we checked the side, the riverbank side first, and saw nothing. We killed that lantern because of it was throwing everything off as far as having that white light, you know, and the mirrored effect thing going on. It was obscuring what we were seeing. So we had killed that. And then we went to the other side where we saw the eye shine. And we're beaming and we're looking real hard in the trees and stuff for any kind of eye shine, any movement, and there was nothing happening. And once we panned back to the left and got back to see where this outhouse was, which was like 40-ish feet off this kitty corner off the back of this place, when we reached that point, that's when we saw that 13 to 14 foot tall, just black figure. This thing was, it's really hard to explain because it was so black, it absorbed light. It didn't give any eye shine, but you could tell it had mass. You could tell it was there, and it was massive. And as soon as that thing moved a little bit, man, we killed that lamp, and we were right back in that cubby. We had barrels crossed on the guns. I mean, we were freaking out. It was dead quiet though. The whole time that we had saw it and all that, and it started moving, it stayed quiet. We didn't hear nothing. We didn't feel nothing in the ground. It was just quiet. And so after it was quiet for a while, things finally calmed down a little bit, you know, to where we could start talking about this escape plan again, right? And we still have time before it gets light outside. So we know we're going to have to, you know, go by boat in the dark, which is very, very dangerous. But, you know, at this point, we really didn't care. We just wanted our chance to get out of there. So as we're discussing this and everything going on, for, gosh, it wasn't that long at all. We had relit the lantern, grabbed up some ammo, grabbed some stuff, killed that lamp. And, you know, when it was a moment after we had killed that lamp that we were all still whispering, still discussing this escape plan, that we hear what sounds like rotor wash in the near distance, that thump, 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 thump sound, right? You know, like you'd hear on the movies when they slow down the helicopter coming in and you just hear the thump of it. It was very similar to that, but we start feeling it in the ground. One of these things ran by the window, and we're in the pitch black, so we didn't see it. We heard it run by. And as soon as it seemed like it got past that where the window would be, all of a sudden there was more running around, different directions and stuff. You could feel their size difference in the ground by the impact their body weight was making as they were running around, and They would run around a little bit and back away, then run around a little bit more and then back away. And like on the second time of them doing that, we heard one of them sniffing the trailer that we were kind of tucked back into. Man, that sound is, oh God, it's etched in my memory. To this day, I still can't have a dog sniff by my ear. It's too much. But that goes on. Gosh, you know, how long they did that, I couldn't say for sure. But they must have run around, you know, 3 to 4 times doing this in all separate directions. And then they backed away, and then it went just dead quiet. Super, super quiet. Well, the light's starting to change outside after a while, and it's getting, you know, lighter, twilight-ish, not quite there. So with it being quiet for so long, we're re-energized to work on this escape plan. So the plan is I hand my cousin my pocket knife because he's supposed to cut that bow line where it meets the chain before he starts the motor. He was going to go out first. He was going to carry my shotgun. I'd have the 30-06. My elder had one of those old Wingmaster shotguns, man. It was a behemoth. I had that slung over my shoulder, and my elder was going to be behind me. And the game plan was get out the door, cousin jump down, cut the bow line, fire up the engine. I helped the elder down the little bank because it was on a 6 or 7 foot drop at the bank on the river. It was on the cut bank. So, and only like 20 feet to where it drops down to where the skiff is at this little landing. And it seemed like 10 miles away in those moments. Believe me, it felt like an immeasurable amount of distance. But so we're discussing this. It's still dead quiet. And, you know, the light is, we're gaining daylight, but it's still not quite enough to fully see, you know, that type of thing. But we were ready to do it. And we get lined up on the door. And just as we're about to go out that door, you hear this thack. It sounded like someone shooting a pellet gun at the place, right? On the same side wall, the front wall where we were standing. And it was a short, like a slow cadence. It was like a thack. And then it instantly just sped up to like hailstorm, man. Deafeningly loud with all those little, they were throwing rocks. Well, of course, we were startled from that, and we ducked back into that little cubby and right back to barrels clacking, and, you know, just, it was chaos. It was terror and chaos. And it was like every time we were getting the nerve up to make a go of it, something else would happen. So we sit there, it's quiet again. We calm down after a little bit, and it's getting to where it's plenty daylight where we don't need to worry about lights or anything, you know. It's go time because we're looking out the windows. We're not seeing nothing. We're not seeing movement or nothing. The time distance between hearing them throw those rocks versus us getting ready to go out the door, I couldn't tell you. I could guess, but I'm probably off just because of the terror of those moments kind of made time kind of stand still. But as we're standing back up at this point and we're at the door and, you know, we're going over our game plan, cut the line, start the motor, you know, I'll help our elder out and, you know, we'll get out of here. And take another quick look out the windows. There's nothing. And we go out the door and it was like we had done it every day of our lives. We were boom at the river's edge. My cousin jumped down, sat down at 30-06 on my right-hand side to help my elder around the riverbank side of me so he can get his footing on this little steep bank going down. And as I'm leaning down, helping him, holding him by his elbow, the buttstock of that damn shotgun of his was kind of pushing me forward. The way I was positioned right at the edge there, it was kind of pushing me forward. So once he got his footing, I scooted back just 4 to 6 inches at the most, grabbed the 30-06 and I stood up. When I got to full height, this rock, a little bigger than a basketball, whizzed by my face, and instantly everything went slow motion. That rock flew out and hit the Nuyakuk River in a spot that was roughly 3 feet deep, fast moving river, but it hit so hard it hit bottom and sounded like a gunshot going off before the water could close over it. And when I turned to my left in the direction the rock came from, at this point, everything's like tunnel vision, like hardcore. But when I turn and look at the direction it came from, that big black one that was absorbing the light was coming out of the tree line. And its movements were very, very just weird. You saw no articulation of the joints. It was almost like an old vampire movie. You know how they'd float in the fog? It was moving similar to that, just moving. Well, I put 3 shots on it with that 30-06, and this thing stopped moving forward. It didn't flinch. It didn't do nothing but stop moving forward. And I was in shock because the 30-06, with the same rifle we killed walrus with, beluga, moose, bear. It was a do everything gun. You know, it never failed. And this thing just took 3 rounds. So I jumped down. The motor was running. The bow line wasn't cut. So I put the 30-06 in the skiff and I'm yelling, throw me the knife, throw me the knife. And at the same time he throws the knife, I'm yelling at him, idle down. He's trying to shift the boat, the skiff in the gear, but it's cold, but he's idling too high as he's trying to shift. So it's making a weird grinding kind of noise. So I'm yelling, you know, idle down, idle down. I cut the bow line. I'm putting the chain into the bow. And my elder is just at this point sitting his butt on the edge to kind of swing his legs in. And I shoved his ass in there. Oh, excuse my language. I shoved him in there. You know, he ended up with a bruised wrist out of the deal, but he was in the boat. You know, it was go time. I just shot this thing. It was time to go. Well, as he spins around to face back towards the bow, and I'm putting the rest of the chain in, I noticed my shotgun on the ground. I was mentally, in my mind's eye, I was going to grab it. I don't know why my cousin dropped it there. I have no clue. I still never got an answer on that. But so he idles down at this point and is able to shift. And as soon as he gets it in, you know, shifted into reverse, they're both looking back at me and their eyes get real huge. And they're looking up at the bank behind me. And so immediately I'm pushing off. And as I'm pushing off, I look over my right shoulder and I only see the one that at the riverbank edge up to it, about its knee. It had real dark black hair, but it wasn't absorbing light. The tips of the hairs were like a reddish brown, like a orangutan, orangish brown kind of tips, if that makes sense. It was the oddest thing, the little things that your mind will hold on to, because that portion of what happened, I don't remember it as one smooth, like reel of events. It was like little pictures of it, you know, snapshots, you know, snap, 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 like that. Again, tunnel vision was hard. So I push off and I tumble into the skiff, and immediately I got the 30-06 again. I got the bolt open. I'm on my knees in the bow. My cousin had backed the skiff up at this point, and I heard it shift into forward gear, and I'm trying to put rounds into this 30-06. I'm looking for 220 grains. I'm trying to do 20 things at once, and none of it's kind of working kind of deal, because it's just so chaotic in my mind. And I'm trying to load this gun, and we're swerving back and forth. And I thought my cousin was trying to break the friction and get up on step, you know, so we could start moving faster. What was happening, I found out years later, is they were throwing rocks at the skiff. You know, one rock hit the transom really good, and another one bounced off the cowling and cracked that. But they were actively trying to disable us from leaving. And, you know, during those moments, I had looked up off to my left once or twice, and I noticed movement up on the riverbank as we're going down river. Now, when I initially turned and looked at the big black mass coming out of the trees, there was movement on either side of it. I was just so much tunnel vision. I couldn't tell you exactly what was going on. Just like I couldn't tell you what noises they were making when they were running around in the different directions. There was all sorts of noises going on, but I couldn't pinpoint one. It was like a goulash of terror in the mind's eye. You know, there's so much, it was like an overload on the senses. But we got downriver a little ways, and I'm looking around hard. There's nothing following us that I could tell, and we're making tracks, as fast as we can going downriver. Once we reached where the Nuyakuk is in confluence with the Nushagak River, I laid there on the bottom of the boat, and it felt like I weighed 1,000 pounds from just being so tense for so long. It was miserable, man. And during the time I was sitting there in the chair, I was gripping that shotgun so hard. I was losing feeling in my hands. My hands would hurt. I was gripping that gun so hard, and also trying to mentally let go of the pistol grip so I could pump that lamp. That was torturous as well. Just because I was so freaked out. It was so hard to, articulate the fingers and grasp and do whatever, because just the tension throughout the whole body. Hello?
Hey. One second here. We're having trouble hearing you, Dad. Yeah, I don't know why your mic isn't working.
Having a microphone issue, you said?
Testing.
There we go. You're back.
Alex, I'm going to tell you, somebody went into my settings during the show, because you have to go through all these menus.
Yeah.
And put it onto my notepad.
Oh my gosh.
That's impossible.
I know.
What the world is going on?
Somebody doesn't want us to have this
conversation. Fred, were you okay? So at this point, were you safe?
My internet. I'll stay away from the conspiracies.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to touch it either. But it's when I see things like my mic, when I haven't touched a thing, gone through 3 different pull down menus and changed it to my notepad when it was on on my other mic, it's kind of weird. It's a little odd. It kind of makes you wonder. Anyhow, so at this point, are you safe? You're in the boat.
Yeah, we're safe.
Okay.
There's nothing chasing us. And at the point where we reach the Nushagak River, we're literally 30 miles away from where we just were. It's not like we just went down a little ways and got out of there. We had to go quite a ways by river to reach the Nushagak. So yeah, we were at a safer place at that point.
So how many creatures, Fred, do you think that there were? And did you think you saw them all, or do you think there were more family members?
Well, I know for sure we saw the 3 sets of eye shine, and just seconds later there was the one outside the window, and then the big black one. So I'm gonna say 5, and that's all I can account for. The running around the place, you could tell some were heavier, some were lighter, but how many of them? I was too terrified to even try to be in any way sophisticated on, wait, that one's bigger than that one. The best I could do is realize that some of them are making more of an impact than others.
Could you make out any of their features as far as the differences between each one?
When they were running around, I didn't see them. We were sitting in pitch black. The one I saw in the window, that one was ashen gray in skin tone. The expression I use is a little darker than wet cement, in that shade range. Its eyes stand out the most because they were like black translucent marbles.
Do you have that photo, Alex? The window?
Yeah.
I didn't hear what Doug said.
He just wanted me to bring up the photo. We got Sibylla's art.
No, that's not it. It's the window one.
Okay. I think I know what you're talking about.
Alex
Yeah.
needs more donuts. I need more donuts. There we go.
Yeah, so we got the artwork silhouette of the one looking through the window right at you guys.
It's just, I can't fathom the size. How big was that window, Fred?
18 inches tall, 24 inches wide.
That's a big creature.
Yeah, and again, I only saw from the bottom of the nose to the top of the eyebrow.
Wow. So there's a reason, Fred, that I've been up to Snell when they've been outside the cabin probably at least 4 times now. I cannot get the courage up to look out the window when I know they're right outside the window. Why is that? I mean, basically what I'm saying is you have a lot of courage.
Yeah, well, I looked because everyone else was looking, if that makes sense. Like the way I looked at my elder and we looked down at him and we looked back at each other and turned, it was like trying to see what he was gawking at kind of thing. Had I had a choice, I wouldn't have. Maybe they would have went away. There's a lot of things you kind of beat yourself up over after the fact. You know what I mean? I honestly wish I hadn't looked, and I wish I hadn't shot through the wall to begin with. However, the thing of it is we weren't expecting it. It just happened. A lot of people have asked me, well, what were you doing prior to, whooping it up, shooting guns? No, we unloaded a skiff from my elder. We weren't disrespecting the land. It's not like we're out there burning tires all day or something. Some people get the wrong impression like we did something. All we did was go there. That's the only thing we did, and it's not like we made the structure there. It was already there. It grants you it hadn't been in use in probably a decade or better. But, we just showed up there. We didn't cause anything other than just our existence in that place.
So you think these creatures could have just ripped that little cabin apart within seconds?
Oh, without a doubt, with ease. I kept expecting that. The whole time I was sitting in the chair, Doug, I was like, how are they going to break this place down? And am I going to have a chance to get shots off? That, and when a moth would hit the window, oh my God. I almost Swiss cheese that place so many times, man. I thankfully I have trigger discipline, but I can't tell you the amount of times I almost just it was driving me crazy sitting there in that quiet. A couple times I felt like running out the door and just saying, come on, let's get it over with. But obviously I didn't. But the things that go through your mind when you resign yourself to death, to be honest with you guys, man, there's certain aspect of life I no longer have joy in, because I essentially died. You know what I mean? So,
could you
for me to smile, it has to be, pretty funny, chopping it up with the buddies or whatever, a little, maybe some dark humor I'll laugh at. But I always, since that day, I've been super serious about certain things, I guess. It's really weird. It's hard to put into context, but it took a lot of joy out of my life. I tell you that much.
Can you go out into the woods by yourself anymore after something like this?
I do. However, I don't go deep, remote places by myself. I always make sure there's at least 2 or 3 of us on excursions like that. I'll hit 4-wheeler trails and stuff, but me alone out in remote, no, I won't do it. I just won't.
And are you always carrying? Like if you go out into a remote enough of a place?
Yeah, there's always security on standby, one way or another. There's always a security detail. Like the videos I make when we're out on excursions, because of YouTube algorithms and stuff, you'll rarely see anything on my videos as far as firearms. And like with Squatch Bait, who goes with me, I'll just make that comment, oh, he's carrying his airsoft today, things of that nature. But yeah, there's always security is on point. whenever we're in a remote place. That's just Alaska. Outside of the hairy man, the moose will try to stomp you to death. I got a bull moose that hangs around my house that's tried to kill me at least 4 to 5 times this winter.
Gosh.
Yeah, it don't like my dogs, so it tries to ambush us. It tried about 4 or 5 times this season. Almost got us a couple times, man. Dedicated moose, and with moose, as I'm sure you guys know, going up north, you can't intimidate them. You can't give a moose a warning shot, so to speak. It's not going to matter to a moose. They fight brown bears. You got no chance.
So I want everybody to try to put yourself a little more into Fred's position, or in any position. Picture you're in a cabin, or picture this, a fictitious situation. You're in a cabin. There's blankets over the window, and there's a family of creatures standing out there. And so people think, well, yeah, I'll just flip that open. But that's a life-changing decision. Correct, Fred? I mean, literally, it's a
100%.
life-changing decision.
No curtains involved in this little shack.
No, I realize. But
yeah, if there was curtains there, that you definitely are gonna. I try to warn people who say, "Oh, I want an encounter. I just want to see it." They want that perfect Patterson-Gimlin kind of experience where they're at a relatively safe distance and this thing's quartering away, and they get a good ooh and ah out of it. And it's so random in nature. It's not how it works. It's gonna happen when you least expect it. And even though we, as First Nations, Native Alaskans, however you want to put it into context, we were aware of these things, and that they were out there. However, up until 2006, I would have been the guy saying, "Hey, they make noise, you leave, you're good." That was my position up until that point. I thought they were relatively harmless. I thought they just made noise to get you out of their area, and that was it. Until what I just shared with you that happened in 2006. And that totally changed my view on these creatures. I saw the other side of the coin, so to speak, because looking back at it in 2020 hindsight, and of course speculation, but we were lured out into an ambush. It just so happened we read the play, so to speak, by seeing the 3 sets of eyes shine and went back inside. We changed things up because within a couple steps, we would have been around that corner where that one was by the window. I mean, these things are fast, but for that thing to move within a couple seconds, if it was one of the 3, I don't see it being one of the 3 that were almost 50 yards away, versus we step inside and literally a couple seconds later, it's at the window. I know they move pretty damn fast, but I feel we saw the ambush before it happened, and just happenstance, seeing the 3 sets of eyes shine and duck back inside. I think we changed the dynamic of what was going on. And then shooting through the wall, that kind of changed things as well, because looking back on it, everything they did after that, outside of the big dark one behind the outhouse, was almost like they were checking to see if we were going to shoot again. I mean, the running around the place, throwing of the rocks and stuff, I think those actions were to see if we were going to shoot again. Because, and again, I'm speculating because I don't truly know, but it feels like the fact that I shot through the wall, and, in that instant, when I said I felt like food, another thing to keep in mind is every fiber of your being is trying to leave your body, but it's stuck in your skin. So it's like an electrical shock, an electrical jolt that just really, it's really hard to put into words. I'm just glad I don't have a heart condition or something like that, because that would have done it. You know what I mean? It was jolting to the system in a way. I mean, it unlocked primal fear in my mind that I feel all of us have. It's just we're so far removed from it that we forget about it, so it lays dormant. But that primal fear is there for a reason, and I think that same primal fear let me understand that I was food.
So, Fred, if you guys had walked in the ambush, you think you guys would have disappeared? You know what I mean? Nobody would have found any sense of you guys being there?
3 locals went missing. you know, no sound, you know, no sign found. I mean, look at the average search and rescue times that effort they put in remote places. If they don't find anything within a couple of days, that search is over.
Yeah.
You know, it really is. If there's no sign of anything within a handful of days at the most, they're calling off the search.
What did your elder say? Did he have any poignant comments while you guys were in the cabin? Did he see the creature?
No, again, I reached out to him in those moments for guidance. What do we do? What do we do? And again, all he did was, when he did reply, was of stuff off topic. The cost per pound of salmon, how much total poundage he caught that year. Anything other than what was happening around us.
Really? Okay.
You know,
Was he just completely blocking out what was going on?
yeah, he was in total shock.
Okay.
He was in shock. You know, looking back on it, in the moments, I was pretty harsh. You know, I was cussing and fussing. You know, someone effing help me, all that. However, looking back and the expressions on his face, and you know, my cousins and my elder, they're very. We were at the end of the summer, so we were all very dark. You know, because we get dark quick in the sunlight. But I'm sure all three of us were pale as ghosts, and he reflected that. Anytime I looked at him, he had, even when he was talking about off-topic things, you could still see the fear in his eyes. It was palpable. And you know, I was hoping for wisdom. You know, how do we defeat these things? What do we do to appease them? You know, anything. I was, you know, in those moments, I was spitballing whatever I could, but I didn't get anything back.
That's crazy. Yeah, it sounds like he was in physical shock.
Yeah, 100. We all were. You know, and a lot of people, you know, when I've shared in the past, are like, you know, I won't say names, but this one person was like, "Oh, so you shot through the wall protecting your family?" It was like, no, I shot through the wall to protect Fred. It was like, get off me. It was so close. In that moment when it made eye contact with me and it were the only things that existed. My family members immediately right by me meant nothing. It was irrelevant in that moment when I shot. I wasn't protecting anybody. I was trying to protect Fred, like, get off me, you know, get away from me.
Jeez.
And yeah, you know, it's rough, you know.
Well, okay, but after you shot this through the wall, I would imagine you're pretty sure you hit it. Were you at that point now even more worried because of revenge?
Well, 100%. That's why I didn't go to sleep. And that's why I sat there waiting. I literally sat there, Doug, waiting for what was to come because of that. I knew in my heart of hearts it wasn't over. I knew I just shot this thing. And I just knew that it couldn't be that easy. You know what I mean? With how it was, everything was going down. I didn't know for sure, but I knew it wasn't over. And there was a few times, like, I wanted to just lay down and go to sleep and you know, say screw it. But for whatever reason, I couldn't resign myself to that. I just kept thinking, they're going to kill me. I need to be ready. Even if they do kill me, I'm going to make sure that, you know, I try to at least get one of them, you know, something. But yeah, it was really hard. It was really hard.
Do you think Will Star was asking, do you think they compete with polar bears up there for food?
You know, that's a good question. I've only heard of one instance of someone reporting a Yeti looking one up near Barrow. And from what was shared with me, it was they thought it was a polar bear at the dump, and then it stood up, turned around, and looked at them, and it had white hair, and it ran off. And I mean, chances are, if one was spotted at a dump up near Barrow, then I would surmise that there may be some direct competition with polar bears. Whether or not they predate on polar bears, I don't know. I have no clue on that.
So was this cabin mainly a hunting cabin, or was it for fishing too? This shack.
No, it was an old fish and game salmon counting tower. So this little shack was only there for fish and game observers to climb a tower every day and physically look down into the river and count how many salmon they saw.
To take surveys.
Very,
Okay.
very antiquated way of doing it. They got LiDAR nowadays and stuff. That's why the place hadn't been used in a very long time before we got there.
Okay.
And
well, were the salmon running?
now, but it was used as just a dried in place.
Were the salmon running during this encounter?
It was middle of September that they were spawning out. There was spawn outs in the river. There was carcasses floating down.
Okay, so
from where bears had, gotten
Right.
a bunch of them.
So there probably still were some salmon in bad shape still swimming in the river.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah. Which explains why they were probably there. That'd be a buffet.
That's another good point. That could be one of the reasons that they were in the area was for the spawn outs, and then they could have viewed us as direct competition for a food source. Because what I speculate is why they're so aggressive up here is our environment, our seasons are so short, and there's a limited time to gather the resources. And so a lot of the encounters I hear about, and my personal encounter was on a salmon river. These encounters happen at hunting camps and berry picking, which are three major, resources up here as far as what indigenous people go after. So, when the indigenous are after it, these things are after it as well. And I think the aggression stems from just that short, extreme environment, the extremely short period of time to collect things. I think it really ramps up the aggression level.
Well, also, the pattern had been broken. Cabin's empty for 10 years at shack. And then suddenly you guys show up. They seem to be very much creatures of habit. They like patterns, they don't like, let's say people came up here every other weekend. Well, they would avoid those weekends, but this thing was empty for 10 years and suddenly you guys show up.
Right. Now, to be fair, other people could have used this place, in between that time. Again, it was just a dried in shell of a place. And on top of that, my encounter on that, what I just shared with you, that is not unique. There is literally dozens of other locals. I found out many years later. I cornered one of my cousins and I said, hey, it was right when I was starting the channel. I said, hey, you got any good hairy man stories? And the first words out of his mouth was, have you ever been up on the Uniqueness River? And I chuckled just because just how close to home it hit, so to speak. And I said, tell me about it. And there's so many different accounts of people having to open fire to keep these things back. Now, grant you, it was at a different salmon counting tower on the Uniqueness that, their occurrences happened. But the whole like Crystal Bay drainage from the Nushagak drainage, the Mulchatna, the Uniqueness, all those rivers, the Cockwalk, all those rivers have stories of hairy man encounters, and all of them are salmon rich. Bristol Bay is the largest salmon returns in the world. You know what I mean? All 5 species. So I think a lot of what we deal with back there in Bristol Bay is those dynamics, the extreme short season, the extreme temperature changes, all that just makes it a very harsh environment, especially for them. We live inside, we can go to a grocery store to supplement, these creatures don't. So I think the aggression is just off the charts when it comes to, these remote places.
Yeah. And we were, Mr. Mitchell had also mentioned, the savant autistic perspective. These things might have been quite angry just because you broke the pattern. I could really, if that's a true thing. And it seems these creatures seem to follow kind of basically an autistic behavior that seems to carry through. And if you guys showed up and nobody's been there for 5 years, they could have been real angry.
Yeah, very true. And who's to say the last people that went by there didn't just open fire off the bat, just seeing something moving on the riverbank, you know?
Yeah. How did the cabin look, this shack? Was it full of mice, feces, dust, dirt, or did it look like it had been pretty, cleaned?
Well,
recently?
no, I mean, okay, when you walk up to the place and you step inside the door, which is off to the left-hand side of the front, the face of it, when you step in, it's only 8 foot square. And, over the years, water damage at the edge of the floor where the floor meets the wall and stuff like that, you had a little bit of dry rot and, moisture wicking, a little bit of moss growing and stuff like that. But we didn't see much mice species at all.
Okay.
For the most part, when people use the place, they would clean up after themselves because there was no excess trash or leftover stuff from like, God, where's that from? That kind of thing. It was, outside of being so damn remote, it was relatively clean. The only thing floating around on the floor was this little 16 penny nail that at one point my cousin was like, let's nail the door shut. And I'm like, dude, stay with me. That nail ain't stopping nothing. Just let's focus on getting out of here, there was no like huge piles of mice scrap or none of that. There was an old oil drip stove off to the right when you immediately go in the door. That was off of someone's old fishing boat. But yeah, it was just a shell. There wasn't even in the little bunk area, there was no mattress material or any blankets or anything left behind for them to bed with. I couldn't speak to underneath the place. And again, I didn't go over it with a fine-tooth comb by any means, but it was in relatively clean shape considering.
So were you guys planning on staying overnight there or just visiting and leaving again?
Oh, no, we planned on being there for a 10-day trip to Gold.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, before the place creaked, we were getting dictated to on where we were going to get sample buckets of pay dirt from, all that. He was laying it out militant, like, I want samples from here first and here next. And, he was just basically walking us through because in our culture, we're the worker bees for the elders. They teach us, we learn by doing, if that makes sense. And that's in essence what we were doing. We were just listening to instruction for what was going to happen the next day when the place creaked and then all this went down.
Okay, so you get back. That was obviously life-changing for all three of you. But you get back. What's next? What do you do? How do you deal with this? What happens?
I'm telling everyone with a pair of ears all the way down the Nushkak River to beware the Nuyakuk. We were attacked. My elder and my cousin, however, they because I didn't live in Dillingham for a long time year round. I was coming back in the summers and staying through the fall, working through the commercial salmon season, then staying for hunting season. So I was gone half the year, but they never moved away per se. They've always been there. So they still had that superstitious view of you don't talk about it, you don't speak its name, it'll bring a bad omen and things like this. So we clashed because I was telling everybody and they were just like, hey, hush. And I'm like, hell no, dude, they tried to kill us. We need to let people know. People are going up there. I was trying right from the start to spread the word, but it was like, it was an uphill battle. For one, some people just didn't want to hear it. Others were like, oh yeah, I already know. And then the ones that would just, laugh at you like, dude, you need to quit drinking, that type of thing. So, it caused, chaos in my life for the next 4 years, self-medicating with, trying to find the bottom of every bottle, that kind of thing. It was a weird survivor's guilt kind of thing. Even though no one died, it was just this weird, strange guilt I had. And, it wasn't good. It ruined our relationship. We were 3 peas in the pod up until then, and I was 31 years old at the time. This happened a little over 17 years ago, and
So,
we haven't.
so
we
why
haven't
do you
really
think
talked
it?
since.
So, I'm sorry. There's a big delay, Fred, on the communications with here in Minneapolis and up in Alaska. Why do you think relationships fall apart after witnesses are together and the experiences? You would think it would bond them, that they would be more bonded, but so often I hear about breakups of two best friends.
Yeah,
do you want to
I
give me your
personally,
opinion?
I think it's because when you see that person, it brings that very painful memory back. And so when someone's trying to forget it, you got to forget everything about it, including the people involved in it.
So it sounds like it feels like this is blocking people from moving on, and they feel like they have to burn every bridge just to get past it.
Exactly. And me, I'm just an open guy. I'm like, hey, I'm trying to tell everybody. You know, when everyone else, they not necessarily shunned me, but they were just tired of hearing it. You know what I mean? Because it's 248 river miles away, so it's out of sight, out of mind kind of thing, right? And so I'm trying to say, hey, you go up to Nushagak. You know, they don't just live there. You know, we had sightings at the end of the Dillingham runway back in 1983. So obviously they're everywhere in that area. I was just trying to get the word out that, hey, they're far more dangerous than we realize. And it was just an uphill battle. You know, it was really disheartening. It really, man, it killed me on the inside because of the relationship I lost with my family members. It's never going to get to where it was. My elder is gone. You know, he passed a couple years ago. My cousin, he's just the times I did talk to him twice in almost 20 years, it was less than 3 minutes each time.
Wow.
The first time I talked to him was to let him know, hey, I'm going to be sharing this experiences. Am I missing anything? Do you want to talk about it as well? He said no. And then I ran over everything I went through with you guys. And the only thing that I didn't know about was when I was reloading in the bow of the skiff and it was swerving back and forth. I didn't know why. I for many years, I just assumed he was trying to break friction. But I found out just a couple of years ago now, that actually they were chucking rocks at the boat as well. But I was so in tunnel vision and shock. I didn't pick up on any of that stuff going on directly behind me. I was just out of it. And the second time we talked, he just asked that I not be given their names. He was like, do what you got to do, but I'm not going to participate. I don't want nothing.
Yeah.
I don't talk about that. You really shouldn't, but do whatever. But I'm not going to talk about it.
Does your family consider it bad luck to talk about this stuff?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a bad omen. I get flack from some of the older relatives, about certain aspects of, having this YouTube channel and talking about certain stuff. But it reaches a point to where I understand the superstition stems from somewhere. However, in this day and age, man, I feel more strongly that people need to know for their safety moving forward. You know what I mean? And so I catch flack, but then other people, they realize what I'm trying to do, other villagers, and they support me. So, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing.
Is there a chance, Fred, that these creatures were just trying to scare you away? Or are you pretty well 100% convinced they would have killed you?
I felt like food. I've never felt like that, even with the charging brown bear. So that's where I get my mindset. I'm biased. I firmly believe I was food. I firmly believe that.
So you don't have any regrets on, shooting and all that stuff?
No, not at all. The only regret I had is not having something more substantial, more than a 12 gauge at 30-06.
And what do you think happened to that creature? That huge, massive creature probably was maybe not even a fatal wound.
I heard the bullets impact it. It didn't even buckle. understand, Doug, the same rifle we shot 2,000-pound walrus with. Walrus, 2,000 pounders, done in a shot or two. This thing just took 3 shots and just stopped moving forward. So I mean, honestly, I hope it festered and died. But I don't know. I have no clue.
The Warrior of Light asked about mentioned that. Are you working on a documentary?
Yeah, but funding is just such a pain.
It's tough.
I have web stores. I don't advertise. I don't do the GoFundMe things or things like that because I view it as a personal project. So I have a real hard time with self-promotion. You know what I mean? Like the funding is the only thing stopping that being completed. I already have some interviews with elders and stuff, and the point of the documentary is to lay out for people our oral history from the past, going back however long, and then bringing it into focus in the here and now in the present and how it's still identical in so many ways, if that makes sense. Kind of like bringing the past forward to show how everything is still connected in those same ancient ways.
Yeah, that's it's challenging, funding and so on, and but I think if you want to have that done, it'll happen for you. It'll happen.
Oh yeah,
There's
for sure.
So much
the cost of the logistics. You know how it goes. I mean, you're a filmmaker.
Yeah. It's a battle. It's a real battle. I do know this, that your story does need to be told. People try to put Bigfoots in categories, and I'm kind of against that because what one family group might do, another family group might be the complete opposite. I mean, just like humans, don't you agree? They're very human-like and can.
Well, yeah, I have to agree. I mean, I hear, people telling of, having good encounters, which is, hey, that's great if that's what they're dealing with where they're at. But some people get upset with me that don't live in Alaska because they have a totally different view of the creature versus my view. And so sometimes people get quasi offended, that, oh, how dare you speak so badly of the kind force people. And that may be where you're at, but up here, they're not friendly like that. It's a lot more cutthroat, so to speak. It's a lot more wild up here. We have a very small population. I mean, 780 some thousand throughout the whole state, with most of them being in the population centers of Fairbanks, Anchorage,
Yeah, right.
Matsu Valley.
It's basically the population of the greater Minneapolis area in that whole giant state.
Yeah. I mean, we could fit 19 other states into this state.
Yeah. No, it's insane. So what are your thoughts on these actual creatures? What do you think they do to stay warm? Do you think they don't need to worry about staying warm? Obviously, food. If you eat meat, you're going to have food 24/7, 365 days a year, correct?
I haven't seen it personally, but I've heard people share their encounters where these things were building their own fires. So if they are indeed able to build their own fires, then there's nothing stopping them from surviving anywhere. You know what I mean?
Well, I was, here's an interesting thought. I'm just going to throw this at you, Fred. I was talking to David Ellis the other day, and I just had brought up a point, and I said, we're always trying to humanize Bigfoots, and where would we go in the winter, and how would we do it? And I said to David, well, maybe they go north in the winter time. Maybe, we always think that they go south, well, or they stay put. Maybe they head north in the wintertime. Maybe they're so adapted to cold weather that they love it. Just like polar bears love it. They absolutely love the cold weather. All they do all summer is pout, right?
Right. And I mean, that's a viable theory. I mean, however, if they were truly migrating north in the winter, I think we would have a lot more sightings of them during that transition time. One thing that was brought up to me by an elder that I was talking to, he said that they move around seasonally, but it's like us as natives did in the past. We had fish camp, and then we had hunting camp, and then we had winter camp, all in the same region, but we would migrate between those points depending on the time of the year and, you know, the availability of resources in that area.
Yeah. And I just, I do think about the wintertime and these creatures. They do kind of seem to just, not completely, but for the most part, they seem to disappear. And of course, that can be because people don't utilize the outdoors as much in the wintertime either. But it's just food for thought. I like to get people thinking, throw dumb diarrhea theories out there that maybe Bigfoots go north, or maybe they go to higher elevations in the winter because they love the cold. Just a possibility.
Right. Well, I mean, in my opinion, there's really no bad theories because we don't have enough information.
We don't know anything. Yeah.
So, reasonable thinking, I would say they, probably use caves. And that's, I mean, goodness, there's a lot of historical accounts of people who have claimed to have been kidnapped and got away where they escaped a cave system of some kind.
Sure.
And up here with all the land we have, there's so many unexplored places. I know for a fact I've been.
Well, you have a lot of peat, Fred. You have a lot of peat bogs in Alaska. Peat bogs can be quite warm.
Yeah, I've actually got accounts of these things diving into old beaver ponds and not resurfacing, or out in the muskeg diving into a pond and not resurfacing, almost like they had an underground like cavern, like a beaver house style that they could, subterraneously go down into.
Yeah.
I had one person, one eyewitness state he sat for hours waiting for this thing to resurface and it never did.
That's crazy. Yeah, well, they do call them water apes. So one of the reasons, let's talk about this aggression a little bit more. One of the reasons, think about the people that a Bigfoot in Alaska would observe. They would only observe probably hunters, armed hunters shooting animals. They're not like the Bigfoots down here closer to the cities. They're going to observe people walking on walking trails and hiking, doing more, just kind of peaceful activities. So I could see a wilderness creature being far more aggressive than the ones down in like the lower 48.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. They're observing, once a year people come to areas and, decimating wildlife and leaving. It could easily, if that's the only point of view you have of a people, then that's all you're going to know of those people. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, they could be going after people for pure self-defense.
Yeah.
Proactive self-defense.
Reading it wrong and reacting the way we do.
Yeah, no, that's crazy to think about. All the things they may be, but I do know that we all tend to, what's that word? How's that word? I'm saying it. Anthropomorph. How do you say that word?
Anthropomorphize.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
that's the word I'm thinking, but I can't say it. We all tend to do that, and I don't think that's a smart idea with any creature because, they might be the opposite of every human trait that we have, other than the fact they walk on 2 feet. We just don't know.
Exactly.
Your bullet may have not even penetrated their fat, let alone, any vital organs.
Right. And I also get asked, well, why didn't you shoot it in the head or the groin? And honestly, at the time, I was going to stop its heart. I wanted to stop it. Like, it gave nothing back. It was just a big black mass. You know what I mean? I had no eyes that I could pick out and shoot at. It was just a big mass, and when I shot, I was trying to shoot for what I viewed as the area of the heart. You know what I mean? To kill it. I mean, it did me no good. It still astounds me because a 30-06 is not, something to sneeze at. It's not like it's a weak caliber. It is a very
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 30-06 is basically a 30-30 with a bigger charge.
Yeah, it is. It is no joke.
A much bigger charge.
I
And
was
30,
180 grain Corlock soft tips, which I killed everything with that round.
Yep. The whole idea of these creatures being all friendly is, I think, just a myth, and that's why I get scared. I go up to Snell, and I get gone up there for years, Fred, and finally we brought our daughters up, and all hell broke loose up there, and the cabin got attacked, and it actually took a cabin, way bigger than the shack you were in, and lifted the corners up. And I'm thinking, what kind of animal could do that? And I mean, we're talking, they must have been really big to be able to lift that off its blocks, And then we were in a cabin that my daughter's going to talk about next week. We were in a cabin that was even far bigger than Snowgrove, and some creature hit the side of the cabin so hard, it knocked the bed, Fred, a foot away from the wall. That's how hard it hit, like a semi-truck.
Yeah, that's intense strength right there. That's immeasurable strength.
I can't even comprehend it, And I would imagine, like you said, you were worried about this thing dragging that shack and just dragging it right into the river.
Yeah, I honestly, I thought it was going to throw us in the river. When it first initially moved, I thought we were airborne because it almost took me off my feet when it screamed and the place shifted. It almost felt like an amusement ride when you know how your stomach will get that little feeling of weightlessness. It was very similar to that, just a lot faster, and thankfully it didn't. But in that moment, I thought for sure I was going to be swimming in just a second.
So I had an experience the other day, and I want to talk to you about it because you had mentioned this feeling like the air got sucked out of the room, or can you describe that again? Because something like this happened to me last week that I've never experienced in my life. It felt like I could almost hear it, like the air pressure dropped 100 pounds instantly. And I wasn't the only one that experienced that. So go ahead, Fred. Sorry.
Yeah, it was a constant pressure, and it was like having earmuffs on, but at the same time, like your ears haven't popped when you're on a flight, and so everyone sounds like they're in a tunnel, even though they're right next to you.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the closest explanation I have for it. And
so for you, the air pressure got greater, correct?
Yes.
Because for me, the other day, and the person I was with, the air pressure dropped drastically, and so I have a tube now in my left ear, so that one just I can't even describe it. It was the most freaky feeling, and they described the same thing, like the air pressure dropped so fast that I could just feel this, like this. You can almost hear it. It was like, woo, and it was like time slowed down for just 4 seconds. It was so weird. I don't know how to explain it.
For us, it was almost like a super low hum that wasn't quite audible, if that makes sense. As far as the
yeah, I mean that's kind of what we experienced too. Was kind of when you say a super low hum, there was an audio component to what we experienced, and so you actually felt like a humming sensation, sort of.
It wasn't audible. It was just how the pressure felt. It felt
Okay.
like a continuous vibration almost. It's really
Yeah.
hard to put into words because that doesn't quite describe it.
It
fully.
is. Well, I've never experienced anything like this. And when it finally happened to me, I was like, oh my God, that was really something, you know? And the fact that you bring that up in your story is pretty amazing.
The reason I bring it up is when I shut that J hook, when I clicked that J hook into the outlet, from that point up until the rock hit the water, it was continuous. It didn't vary. It was just a constant throughout the whole night. Looking back on it, outside of the big black nothingness that absorbed light, like that was another, part of this that really boggles my mind. Just as to why that pressure, it was that deafening kind of pressure. I don't know.
But do you think it was caused by your body, by your blood pressure going up from the fear? Or do you think it was something they were doing, is my question?
It was outside of me. So I'm speculating, of course, that
of course
one of these things was doing it.
Gotcha. So do you think that something happened that they did that caused you to feel those feelings in your ears?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
100%. Because
this is fascinating.
Water, it was like someone hit a switch and then I could hear it clearly.
That's exactly the way I can describe what happened to me the other day. It was like something hit a damn switch. Super, super weird. I've never experienced it. Hopefully I never do again.
Fade in or fade out. It was instant. When it happened, it was instantaneous. And then when it went away, it was instantaneous.
Okay, so let's we're getting a little late, but I think we have a little more time. I would like to hear another story, and then the Warrior of Light also mentioned about people's cameras dying or batteries dying too. But I'd like to hear a story, one that you've heard from up there in the subarctic area that kind of blows your mind.
Well, this particular story was shared with me not too long ago. I was actually at the airport waiting to catch a flight, and there was a couple guys from waiting for a flight out to Kotzebue, and then from there they were going to their prospective villages. But I ask every native I run into, hey, do you have more hairy man stories where you're from, or more little people? It's kind of a way to break the ice once I explain who I am and stuff. And these two guys chimed up immediately and said, hairy man. I won't give away their village because he asked me not to, but he said 10 years ago, this is only going back a decade, a lagoon near their village, his grandpa, before he passed, found one of these creatures in a small basket. It was a baby one. And when he initially found it, he thought it was a human child till he looked closer and realized it wasn't. So what he did was he removed the basket from the lagoon and gave it a Christian burial. Within a couple days, a shaman a couple villages away was contacted by these beings and was asking, where's the child, or it's going to be war, basically. And so the shaman reached out and found out what happened and led these beings to his grandpa. And this being was with the shaman, and the others were off in the trees. And because of the respect this elder used to bury the child, they said they're going to let it go this time, but next time, if you see a child, you respect our customs and you leave the child be, floating in a basket or whatever. Otherwise, it'll be war. When I heard that really threw me off, because I thought he was sharing an experience from like antiquity kind of thing, but it was like a decade ago. And that to me blew my mind. That, and I would love to talk to the shaman that had the interaction with these creatures, like the who, when, why, where, how they get a hold of you, that kind of thing. But again, I don't know the people, so it'll be difficult.
So is there another story of rock throwing or some encounter somebody had that was aggressive up there? that you can
Well,
recall?
The larger counting tower, more closer to Kalignik. One of my cousins shared with me that him and a couple guys, they were staying in the larger bunkhouse much further downriver towards Kalignik on the Nuyakuk. That particular counting tower, I think they still use it with they roll out the LiDAR on the bottom of the river bottom or whatever. But they were there towards the end of hunting season, and they had the outer door open, and on the inside is a much larger bunk area with a door and not just a little blackout curtain. And they were sitting inside that bunk area. There was 3 of them. One was on a top bunk. My one relative was on the bunk below him, and there was another gentleman sitting by the open door, and they had a lantern going. And the reason they had the doors open is they were smoking inside. And as they were sitting there talking, they heard something come in the door, and they felt its weight in the floor. It was massive in weight. And all of a sudden, the open doorway, this thing peeks its head up over the top of the door and looks down at them and smiled. And when it smiled, the guy on the top bunk took the safety off of his rifle, and this thing ducked out. And as it's going out, it grabbed the one guy by his coat that was sitting next to the door and was attempting to rip him out the door with him. But luckily he had enough mind to partially close the door to like make a barrier to stop it. And it tore off half of his jacket and left. That's
crazy.
He got lucky. This thing was trying to snatch him, and that's on the same river.
So
another lady who was setting a whitefish net to catch whitefish, pike, and barnet and whatever, and she was backing away from the riverbank, letting the net fall out the bow as she was operating the skiff. And all of a sudden, when she got to the end of her line and she was just going to sit and float with the anchor in the water and catch some fish and then go about her way, all of a sudden this thing was on shore trying to pull her in by the net. So this thing was pulling the net because it's attached to the skiff, and little by little pulling her in. So she opened fire on this thing to get it to stop. It ran off over the bank. She cut her line and got out of there, and then came back later with, the posse, so to speak. And the whole net was twisted up around a tree right off of the riverbank. Man, there's just a bunch of them from that area, and plus all over the state.
Are most encounters up there, Fred, aggressive?
Well, okay, let's be honest about it. If something growls at you and is shaking a tree, regardless of what it means by it, it's going to be viewed as aggressive.
Correct.
So let me preface it with that.
Okay.
And I'm just being honest, because it'd be very easy to villainize every encounter as it was vicious. But if we really break it down and look at it, for the vast majority, it's an aggressive display, but these things could easily outclass us. So, for the vast majority of it, it's an aggressive display to basically get people out of the area.
It's intimidation, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Intimidation. And for the recipient of that intimidation display, I mean, let's just be honest. If something that large is making these gestures and these noises, there's no way you're not going to take it as aggression. It's just humanly impossible. We're not designed to, like, in the moment, break it down and go, well, is he upset at me or just me being here? That doesn't happen. You don't rationalize like that when these things happen. You just, you tuck tail and run or do something.
So on our way, I want to tell a quick story. On our way up to Snellgrove, we had 2 guys in another car behind us. And we were up front. I wasn't driving. I was a passenger. We were seeing lots of moose, and we were really far north, driving right through the middle of the forest up in Canada, in a generally roadless area. And the 2 guys behind us saw a large pine tree that probably was 40 feet tall, swaying back and forth to where the tip of the tree was practically hitting the ground, back and forth, back and forth. could you imagine the strength that would take, Fred?
Oh yeah, and as a matter of fact, I'm glad you brought that up. There's a spot over by Moose Meadows, which would be the south side of Hatcher's Pass, that I found like 8 to 10 inch diameter spruce tree that had been twisted 180 degrees and pushed over, not broken from the ground. A couple of the roots were broken from the sheer force, but there's no mechanical marks on this thing. Whatever did it, twisted it 180 degrees and pushed it down between 2 birch trees.
Jeez.
And I got that on video. Not of them doing it. Obviously, that would have been all over the internet by now.
Right.
But just the aftermath of this tree had been twisted and pushed over. I actually use part of that footage as some of my opening sequence in some of my videos.
That's crazy. So I want to throw another just theory. I want to throw a theory out, Fred, and get your thoughts. Okay, so if a Bigfoot does not understand guns and bullets, right? It doesn't understand them. It knows they kill animals, but it doesn't understand the physics. So I read a story once of a man who was working at a construction site, and he felt just a little twinge in his head. That was the end of it. Years later, he realized he had been shot when he finally got an x-ray, like 20 years later, that he had a bullet lodged in his head. And he never flinched when he got shot in the head because he didn't see it. Does that make sense? It went in the back of his head. He never saw the hole. So I'm wondering if this creature, in other words, I've also heard stories of people that had their fingers cut off but never saw it. So they didn't feel any pain. You follow what I'm throwing?
Yeah, that's interesting. And man, that's goodness.
So you shoot it, but it doesn't know. All it hears is a loud sound, but it doesn't know it's shot. So why would it react? So much of this is mental, mind. It's mind over matter. If you don't know that your fingers are cut off, you're not going to feel any pain, right? Why would you? I've seen this happen, and I've read so many stories and have known people that have really been hurt seriously, but didn't know it. And so maybe this thing didn't react much because it didn't know it had a bullet in it.
I mean, that could be. I've on a factory trawler out on the Bering Sea, I witnessed a woman. She was working the thin line on a cutting machine, and these factory trawlers are like 340 feet long, and they go, 7 levels underwater and 4 above. They're massive ships. Well, she's working this machinery, and this is like 50 feet away from me at the most. Where the station I was, we were on a break, so we're standing there waiting for more fish to come down the conveyor belt, and we're watching the other workers, and these little Filipino ladies were real fast at what they did. I mean, it looked amazing. So we had watched, and this lady got her right hand, like the safety stop didn't work on this cutting machine. Her hand was cut off in an instant, right? Before blood could even spurt, you seen her motioning this stub towards the shutoff, but because it happened so quick, she was trying to use the palm of her hand, which was no longer existent,
right,
to try to hit the button. And she was like, 3 to 4 inches away. But in her mind, I'm assuming, is what you're saying. She couldn't tell that her hand was gone, and she was trying to hit the button, the stop button with her palm.
Yeah, that's a weird phenomenon. I just could imagine this thing getting shot and not knowing it's got a bullet. It's been hit with a projectile. Just wouldn't even feel it. And that's maybe the reason so many of these creatures just wander off, like they weren't even shot.
Yeah, or they're just so much more dense muscularly and bone density and everything else that it's, shooting a pellet gun at a freight train.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that thing just maybe walking around to this day and never really bothered it with a bullet in it.
Honestly, Doug, I sure hope it bothers it every day. I really hope it festered and something.
Oh, geez.
But I'm biased.
Yeah.
I have issues. I have no trust for these things.
That's crazy. Alex, do you have any questions for Fred? I've been kind of hogging all this. He's so fascinating to talk to.
Yeah. Do you think this mystery is ever going to be definitively solved?
I truly think so. Now, I feel like this UFO disclosure thing that they did, a little soft disclosure where they had the whistleblower stuff. I think that's a catalyst for potentially in the future us getting more information. I feel we're at a tipping point. There's so many eyes on it. There's so many people investing energy, time, and money. Of course, there are the ones out there too. I found Bigfoot. I'm the one that whatever classified it. But I'm talking in general. There's a lot of people putting eyes on it, and I think we're at a tipping point. Of course, there's hoax footage out there, but guys who have been in the field and witnessed these things, it's easy to pick out the real footage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is.
There's a bunch of good, authentic stuff out there. And I think we're reaching that vital tipping point to where things are going to start progressing forward in the near future. When I don't have a crystal ball, but I definitely think that we're going to get a better understanding before too long.
That's a good answer. There's no wrong answer to that, but that's a good answer. I always tell people I think one's going to get hit by a Tesla semi someday, but it's not going to hear. It's going to be some electric vehicle.
Right.
Do you so are you actively
posting?
I'm sorry, Fred. Go ahead. Say that again.
Oh, I said that would be a picture worth posting. Just a Tesla truck just fully indented with the Sasquatch outline. That'd be something to see.
Exactly. Would you be willing to come back on, Fred, so we can just talk? Just have a conversation. We don't have to have you tell your story again. We just want to talk to you.
Yeah, Doug, anytime, buddy. Anytime.
That'd be awesome because you are an extremely intelligent and extremely straightforward thinking man. I look up to you, Fred.
Well, I appreciate that. And you're welcome to call me anytime behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, I'd love to just talk to you. You never know what comes out of just talking sometimes.
Yeah. And talking is what it's going to take for certain biases and certain people to not get locked in. I've met a lot of people who are pigeonholed to certain ideas and they won't let go of them. You know what I mean? And that's unhealthy. That leaves so much no wiggle room, when you're locked into a certain line of thinking. I know I'm biased, and that's why I have to think outside of myself. Because I say shoot every freaking one you come across. But that's me, and that's just it'd be unfair of me to try to project that on others. What I do when they share with me is I let them share it, and I try to leave Fred out of it, so to speak, because I know my views are skewed and one-sided. You know what I mean? So
yeah, but you're, I love your open mind and just kind of your straightforwardness. It's very refreshing. I really want to thank Sibylla Irwin for supplying all these beautiful drawings and artwork that she did and letting us use it so freely.
She did a great job.
Yeah, that's got to be kind of weird looking at these illustrations. It's got to be weird for you.
Honestly, I haven't watched me and her interview as a whole, the way she produced it. I shared with her, via, like StreamYard or whatever we used. And I couldn't, there's certain triggers, and she did a really good job at the way she produced it. And some of the people were like, oh man, I saw the part, and then I was thinking in my mind, I was like, I can't watch that. That's really I can't have a white light above my head. I can't, if my house creaks from the wind, it's a trigger. It just sends chills up my spine. The dog sniffing by my ear, the hiss of a lamp. Certain things I can't do. And they're not as frequent, but I still have nightmares over this situation.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I had a really bad thing happen to me while I was in Russia, and it started with a knock on my door in a hotel room. And to this day, if I'm in a hotel room and the maid knocks on the door, it just totally weirds me out. I mean, it makes me upset. Just something simple like that. So I totally get it, Fred. Totally get it.
But yeah, thanks for. I want to say thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it, Doug. I've watched you for years. I'm a huge fan of your productions, and I appreciate you having me on.
Well, no, it was my pleasure, and I really apologize for all the technical problems. We had some weird stuff happen tonight. I'm just baffled by some of it. Actually, the fact me and Alex did a sound check, everything's perfect. As soon as we get on, Alex starts talking, and his mic is just. I can't even hear myself think. It was the worst sound I've ever heard, as if somebody was blasting me with some kind of a ray gun. I don't know. You wonder. I'm not going to go down that road, but God, you do wonder.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I lost all internet access when a plane flew over, and that dumped me off the StreamYard.
Yeah, that's kind of odd too. So, yeah. Anyhow, well, I'm glad Alex got you back fixed up, and everything in the end worked out really good. I think we had a good show.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate everybody in chat. A lot of great scientific comments that I'm going to they're so good. I want to go back and read them. You guys are all super intelligent, super brilliant. We've got a lot of great people in chat, and thank you so much. And thanks to the moderators who do a great job, and Lori and John Ayers and so on. So we'll see everybody back next week. I'm going to get Alex to get you booked again, Fred, and it's just going to be a conversation. That's all we're going to do. We're just going to talk. So thank you. Good night. And I'm going to leave everybody with some Will Rogers. You know who Will Rogers was, Alex?
Will Rogers?
Yeah, he was a he was a philosopher cowboy.
Yeah, the name sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was an amazing wise man. And there's a quote from him that I love. And he goes, basically, don't let yesterday take up too much of your time today. And so on that, good night, everybody.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. We love you all. Bye.
Bye.
I call you up in the middle of the night. Been bothered by dreams, ain't feeling alright. You give me comfort, say just give it some time. By the end of our talk, I'm feeling just fine. You and I will always know where we belong. This ain't no ordinary love we got going on. I'll pick you up in my 59 Ford. We head on down the road until we get bored. Just you and me and the sun and the wind. If the rain should start falling, we'll head on home again. Everybody else can see where we belong. Oh, ain't no ordinary love we got going on. At the end of the world, together forever is one, and I'll wait. If ever you should be in doubt, and I'll pray they never can pull us apart, and I'll wait for the time when we'll be together every day. But I know if ever we'll be led astray, that I'll find my way back home to you again. At the end of the world, together forever is one, and I'll wait. ever you should be in doubt, and I pray they never can pull us apart in the way. At the end of the world, together forever is one, and I'll wait if ever you should be